Hey, all of you who've been following the channel know right down below you can get a free PDF. You can download that PDF and you can start writing better poetry today. Or you can support the channel and buy the book on Amazon. Don't care. It's all the same to me. I just want to help you get better. You know, you've been listening to the vids that I'm passionate about poetry as a craft. You know that I believe that it's this long and continuous tradition. There's so many great possibilities out there for people who are genuinely intellectually curious. Now, for those of you who want to stay bad at poetry, you don't want to get better, this video is for you. Here's some ways to ensure you stay terrible. The first is you reject excellence, because all good poets eventually hold themselves to high standards. And you're not going to do that. And the best way to do that is not have any standard. Don't learn what good poetry is. In fact, reject the whole notion that there could be good poetry. For you, it's all equal. It's all the same. It's all subjective. There's just all this kind of nihilistic relativism for you. It doesn't matter whether it's written by a 5-year-old in a crayon or whether it's William Shakespeare. It all means something to somebody. That's your world. And you should cherish your ignorance. Speaking of Shakespeare, why the heck would you read that? You're better off not knowing that, because you wouldn't want someone else's ideas to taint your own originality. So you're not going to read Allen Ginsberg either. You're not going to read anybody. Now, I'm not just talking about not reading stuff, but you're going to actually get angry and bothered when people bring stuff up. You know, someone compares you to Laura Riding, or says maybe you should check out some County Cullen. Well, those are relatively, admittedly, a little bit out of the way obscure poets. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people hadn't heard of those poets. And no one should be ashamed for not knowing anything, because if you don't know something, it just means an opportunity to learn it. But this poet's going to take it to the next level. You say, and this actually happened on Reddit, someone was like, oh, you should check out some Dylan Thomas. And this poet just exploded. And they were like, oh, you're so pretentious and it's lame and just, elitist and blah, blah, blah. It's like, Dylan Thomas is one of the major figures in the 20th century. If you haven't heard of Dylan Thomas, you're really, really ignorant. And to be proud of that, it's taking it to another level. That's good. That's going to make sure you stay bad forever. Now, here's another great approach you can use to stay bad. Instead of looking at poetry as this craft, as this art form that has these distinctive features that only poetry can do, that the essay can't do, that the movie can't do, that the dance routine can't do, that there's really no other way to communicate certain types of feelings and ideas and parts of really what makes us human, except in a poem. Nah, not for you. Poetry is just for you. It's just a form of self-medication. It's just a form of therapy. People who challenge you on that and who are like, well, but what about the reader? What about what the reader might need? And be like, fuck the reader. They can come to me. They should come on my terms, to all my frame of reference. Your poetry should become a complete solipsism, a complete system trapped in your own head. And you should assume that people will be interested in the machinations of your own mind, because, you're a genius. And the fact that you're just writing this because you're self-medicating in your own weirdness, or marinating in it is probably more likely, makes it even better. It should automatically be something everybody's interested in. Now, I'm not saying that poetry can't have some type of therapeutic value, or that there aren't many, many, many great poems started from introspection, from reflection, from looking at difficult emotions honestly, and then attempting to work with them, to come to grips with them, to try to find universal ways in which other people could grapple with those things, to tie them into ideas to larger than yourself, to myths, to narratives, to images and illusions, and into sound, interesting sonic capability elements of these emotions. to really craft and hone something enduring, bigger than yourself, right? But no, poetry for you is just about yourself. That's how you can stay bad. It's key, absolutely key. Speaking of this, because it's all about you, right? Anybody who criticizes you is a stinky doo-doo head. You're like the tank with the exploding armor. Anyone who comes at you, bro, you're just going to explode on them, because you want to build this kind of edifice to protect yourself and insulate you from any idea that your poetry could be improved upon, to take extra steps to make sure, even by accident, you won't get better. I think it's key that you have this kind of ultimatum, all or nothing attitude. You're either a genius or you're a loser. And poets, in your mind, are born. They're not made. So it's not the case that you could just try to be better today than you were before, or that you could work on your tool set and you could just try to hone some of these different skills you need. Nah, that's elitist. That's pretentious. That's wrong. Instead, everybody's special, but especially you. And all you need to do is write your genius out. And if people get it, then you're awesome. And if they don't, then you're nothing. Probably what will happen with your all or nothing attitude is eventually you'll give up and you'll have wasted all this time, which is great because that will ensure that you're always bad at what you do. Next, very, very important thing is always work alone. For you, your poetic project should be to essentially lock yourself in a cabin somewhere in the middle of nowhere with a big sheet of paper and write the next American epic poem. You know, there shouldn't be any interaction or feedback with others. You shouldn't attend workshops. You shouldn't try to network and make friends. You absolutely shouldn't try to submit any of this stuff to a literary magazine because they ain't ready for your genius anyway. By working alone in your kind of fortress of solitude, you also perpetuate this false idea of this kind of heroic individual, which is pretty much nonsense. You reject this idea that poetry is a representation of the cultural and societal situation which creates it, and is thus, to a certain extent, kind of this communal artifact. That's not for you. So these are some great ways that you can make sure that you don't get any better. For those of you who reach out and are sending me some poems, especially those of you starting out, I urge you to look over this carefully and think, am I doing any of these things accidentally? I find a lot of people reach out to me and they're reading Instagram poetry, and I don't think that's the best way to get better. Even if your goal is to become a great Instagram poet, well, I don't know. I guess you should try to suck if that's your goal. But all I'm saying is if you're reaching out to me, you guys know what I'm about, okay? Hit the book, get in the anthology, start to read some of the major poets of the 20th century at least. Delve into your favorite poets in depth. Read a biography or two, okay? Ignorance is not a good look. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you dropping in, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.